Okay, here's another story from Don't Kiss the Frog. This one's called The Princess Exchange. Once upon a time, there was a princess named Jane. And you'd probably never guess she was a princess. Her parents were a very modern king and queen. They tried to lead ordinary lives like their subjects. They didn't wear crowns when they went out, and they only let her wear a tiara on very special occasions. But she didn't want to be ordinary like her parents, the king and queen. She dreamed of being a fairy tale princess and living in a fancy palace and living happily ever after. What's the point of being a princess if you didn't act like one? She didn't even sound like one. Her name was plain old Jane. How she longed to be named something regal like Annabella or Clarissa. Plain old Jane. Now, she and her parents lived in a perfectly comfortable little castle. They had a few servants. Their home was plain compared to what other people lived in, royalty today. I wish we could move, she said. But the castle had been in her dad's name for a long time, and he thought it was just fine. I wish you'd hold a ball, she begged Queen Bee. But instead, the queen invited their subjects over for a barbecue in the royal gardens. No ball? Why not? I wish we had a coach with 6 white horses, she grumbled when the footman drove her to school. But her parents thought a minivan was more practical. She didn't follow the royal traditions. They had one exception when their daughter was born. She didn't have a godmother. She had a fairy godmother. There's the house. And there he is driving her to school. She didn't like that barbecue either. One night, as she got ready for bed, she heard a pop. Out of nowhere came the fairy godmother. You made 3 wishes, my dear, so I've done my best to grant them. I've arranged for a princess exchange. 1, Princess Prunella will be coming here for the weekend, and you'll go stay with her parents. I think you will find their style more to your liking. Thank you, fairy godmother. You're the best. She disappeared, and she went to sleep with a smile on her face. The next morning, she woke to the sound of trumpets. Outside the castle stood a glittering golden coach drawn by 6 white stallions. They were tossing their manes, pawing the ground impatiently, and Jane kissed King Bee and Queen Bee goodbye and jumped inside their coach. There's the fairy godmother. And there she is in bed. The journey to Pepperhurst Palace was long and uncomfortable, and the carriage shook every time it went over a bump. So Princess Jane's bottom ached, and the white stallions certainly looked impressive, but they were a little smelly and kept flicking flies inside the coach with their tails. But at long last, King Leonard and Queen Lucinda received her in the throne room. You want to change into something less comfortable, said the queen, giving Princess Jane's t-shirt and jeans a disapproving look. One thing that we have as a rule here, you have to wear your tiaras all the time. So she changed into Princess Prunella's tiara. And she admired herself in the mirror. She perched a sparkling tiara on top of her head, and she looked like a real princess. She wandered into the drawing room, planning to watch her favorite cartoons on television. No time for that. Common nonsense. Prunella spends her Saturdays at deportment classes, elocution lessons, learning how to talk nice, and ballroom dance instructions. By the end of the day, her head hurt from all the lessons and from too tight a tiara. She was tripping to play in the palace grounds for 1 hour, but she kept tripping on her long skirts, and she couldn't climb trees in her dainty slippers. Maybe this isn't as great as she thought it would be. She just longed to go outside. That evening, King Leonard and Queen Lucinda had a splendid ball in honor of her, and they danced for hours, and she worked up an appetite, and the banquet table had all things for her to eat. She couldn't find anything she wanted, though. Caviar tasted like gym socks. I wish they had some pizza and milk, chocolate chip ice cream. That's what they ate on Saturday nights at her castle. When the clock struck midnight, a hungry and weary Princess Jane headed to bed. It was such a relief to take off her pinching tiara and her scratchy ball gown. She climbed into bed, couldn't fall asleep. It was too cold. The magazines never mentioned that big marble palaces tend to be quite chilly. She thought of her warm and cozy bed at home. I wish I was in my own bed, she whispered, in between her chattering teeth. You look as though you haven't slept a wink, Queen Lucinda said. She squeezed inside the golden coach and paraded through the streets all morning long. Smile and wave, smile and wave. Her arms ached, and she got tired of smiling. She saw other kids playing, riding bikes. But no princesses can do that, said Queen Lucinda. I wish I could go home. As soon as she uttered the third wish, her fairy godmother appeared, filling the golden coach with a cloud of magic. But my dear, I thought the palace is everything you wanted. It was, but there's no point acting like a princess if ordinary people have more fun. Her parents had been telling her that for years. And with a wave of fairy godmother's wand, she was back at home in time for lunch with King Bree and Queen Bee, for a walk through the park where she played on the swings with the other children and got ice cream as a special treat. It's so good to be home, licking a cone of mint chocolate chip ice cream. Wonderful to have you back, darling, said Queen Bee. That Princess Prunella was a bit too stuffy for us. From that day on, Princess Jane was happy to be just plain old Jane. She sometimes dusted off her tiara and wore it to birthday parties or royal barbecues, but most of the time you'd probably never guess that she was a princess. And that is exactly how she liked it.